Hey everyone, it's NHL trade deadline week. Welcome back to the channel. My name is John Viveiros, host of Hot Take Hockey. If you're new to the channel, new subscriber, I hope you guys stick around. I'll be live all day on NHL trade deadline day this Friday, March 7th. So to everyone that's been on this channel, they know that this happens. One of the biggest streams of the year on this channel. So always a great time. And it's always a great time to release some predictions. So I'm going to release kind of my final predictions here. There might be some small changes in terms of what I hear and what happens on trade deadline day, what happens this week. So look out for that. And if you could on this video, hit that like button, comment your thoughts down below, comment your predictions down below. I'll look to reply to a lot of you guys that comment some predictions. And then of course, subscribe if you're new. So let's get into it. Not going to waste much of your time. Let's go through predictions. So predicting destinations, again, some I might add a couple, but Brock Nelson, Minnesota, I've been kind of on that lens. I think if he doesn't stay, if the Islanders don't extend him, Minnesota makes a lot of sense to be the destination here. Winnipeg maybe as a secondary option. Scott Laughton, it just seems like he's going to stay. He wants to stay. The Flyers, reports from Elliot Friedman, other insiders are talking about that the Flyers might just do right by him. Like, they're asking for way too much for the guy. They're asking for a first-round pick plus. And I just don't think he's worth that. I think Scott Laughton wants to stay in Philly, so I'm going to say he stays. I think if anything changes from now until Friday, maybe a team like Toronto or Ottawa goes aggressive, but I think that's where I'm at right now. Brandon Tanev, Toronto. I mean, his brother's there. I think the Leafs are looking for exactly that kind of forward in their bottom six. Also a guy that can contribute and score those dirty goals in the playoffs, those greasy ones. So I think Brandon Tanev's a perfect fit. And as I said, his brother's already there. Jake Evans, New Jersey Devils. So when you look at Evans, it's interesting to me because he's a pending unrestricted free agent, and I think when you look at his career so far, he's been very much a third or fourth line center, but I think he can move up the lineup. We'll see what happens with the Devils here and Jack Hughes' injury. I think Colorado could be another team that goes after Jake Evans, but there's been so much smoke around New Jersey going after him that I think, honestly, New Jersey might make a bigger trade with Montreal. We will see. And then Riley Smith to Winnipeg, I feel like that's the Jets' shovel day off kind of player, a guy that they don't have to give up a lot for, but can go right into that middle six, bottom six potentially. So I think that works. Luke Cunnin, Toronto. I think the Leafs are going to go in a couple different directions here. I actually think they might end up going like an overhaul of their bottom six or fourth line. So I could see them acquiring 2 or 3 smaller forwards versus a bigger one based on what I'm hearing right now. I would love for the Leafs to make a big splash and go after a top 6 forward, kind of what I've been talking about, or a third line center that can beat out John Tavares maybe for the second line center spot, like that good of a player, but I just don't know if Trey Leming's going to do that. And what Trey Leming's done in the past at trade deadlines is kind of underwhelming. So I think in that aspect, it might not be disappointing moves in terms of what they need, but it might not be that big sexy move. So Luke Cunnin's another addition to that. Maybe it ends up being a fourth line of Cunnin and Tanev versus what the Leafs are offering right now. And again, maybe that means that guys like Yarncrow and Dewar are flipped in these deals to the other teams. Carson Soucy to Calgary. I just feel like Calgary's going to acquire a defenseman at this deadline with term. That's the big word I want to say, with term. There's rumors right now that Calgary's looking at Brandon Carlo from Boston. I don't know if Boston's trading Carlo. We'll see. I think Calgary would have to give up more for that. But Soucy and another defenseman I have on this list could be the targets that are more realistic for Calgary. And left shot, I don't know why they would target another right shot defenseman. How I look at it for Calgary is they already got 2 right shot defensemen that are great defensemen in Mackenzie Weegar and Rasmus Andersson. So I don't know why they'd go for another right shot. Rickard Rakell, I feel like Colorado's going to make another splash. Like, you don't trade Mikko Rantanen unless you're doing something else. So I think they could do some smaller stuff like a Joel Armia or a Jake Evans. But I also think they could go after a big fish like Rickard Rakell. So I think the Avalanche are going to add 2 more forwards in my opinion. So maybe it's Rickard Rakell and Joel Armia. I think if they keep Casey Middlestat, they don't necessarily need another center. Like they have, obviously, Nate Mack. They have Casey Middlestat as their 2C. And then there's so many other options they could have as their 3C, whether it's Ross Colton or not. And then Kyle Palmieri back to New Jersey makes a lot of sense for me. I think the Islanders will see if they even want to trade in division, but Palmieri's a Jersey boy. Send him back. I want to see Palmieri in Jersey. Brock Besser to Carolina. I feel like the Hurricanes have talked to the Canucks so much. If it's not Elias Pettersson, why not Brock Besser? I think that actually makes a lot of sense. So keep an eye on Besser for the Hurricanes. I would also say there's other teams out there that Besser could go to, in my opinion, especially in the Eastern Conference. Like, I wonder if Florida would get aggressive, especially with Tkachuk on LTIR now. I feel like Besser would be that kind of big game player for the Panthers, and if they want to keep adding. So keep an eye on the Panthers as well. Looking at also the Washington Capitals. I would look at the Capitals as well as maybe wanting another scorer on that right side. Trevor Zegras, New Jersey or Montreal if he gets traded. I feel like, again, it might be more of an offseason move, but we'll see. I think if Zegras is going to get traded, I'm still stuck on those two teams. And again, we'll see Jack Hughes' status. Imagine Trevor Zegras' buddy kind of filling his spot until he comes back. And again, the Washington Capitals, I feel like they're looking for right wingers. Justin Brazeau would be the more lower end, less expensive right winger to acquire. I think the big fish they might be looking at is a Brock Besser, but next to that, I feel like they could make another move with the Boston Bruins. Not too long ago, the Boston Bruins and Washington Capitals made that move together, the Garden Hathaway, Dmitry Orlov trade. I think maybe this time Washington and Boston could make another deal. And Washington being the acquiring team of the two guys where Boston's could be a selling team at this deadline, which is crazy to say, but I'm not saying they're going to overhaul their team. Like, I want to say Carlo and Marchand are still in those talks, and I would keep an eye on it. But I'm not going to have those two guys on this list right now because all signs point towards Boston wanting to keep them, even though I think there's some buzz around there and teams wanting those two players. But in terms of Boston, I think they're going to trade Frederick and Brazeau, so keep an eye on that. Alexiak, again, I think Calgary could target either both or one of Alexiak and Soucy. I think it makes a lot of sense. Other teams I would look at it for Alexiak would be Toronto, Florida, to name a couple. I think, again, it would go cross-conference from, obviously, Alexiak's with the Kraken right now to the Eastern Conference. Jared McCann, maybe a return to the Florida Panthers where he played there early on in his career. You know what? I think Florida, again, with Matthew Tkachuk and LTIR, I think they're going to go after a forward now. They acquired Seth Jones as the big defenseman, the big addition. I think they might go after a backup goalie, so keep an eye on that. Like, I would look at Chicago as maybe a secondary trade. Like, I know they already made a trade with Chicago, but then there's other deals out there that I think they could pursue. So keep an eye on that. Chris Drieger could be their backup, but I also think they might go after a forward to use that LTIR space that they have with Matthew Tkachuk, who's probably not returning till playoffs to utilize that space. So Jared McCann would be a good fit. Peter Mrazek to the Edmonton Oilers. There's some speculation that's coming out today, and quite frankly, the last few days that Carolina, Edmonton are the couple teams that are looking at goaltending right now. Again, I'm going back to the John Gibson conversation. I actually don't have him on this list because where's the smoke been around John Gibson? I just haven't heard it much leading into this deadline. And again, it leads me to believe that it could be an offseason move again. But Peter Mrazek, I feel like Chicago just acquired Spencer Knight. I feel like Mrazek's got to get dealt here at some point. To me, Soderblom should be the number 2 behind Knight, and that makes Mrazek expendable. So, you know what? If Chicago was willing to retain or another team come in, a third-party broker come in and retain on Mrazek, it would make perfect sense for Edmonton as kind of that, I don't know, mix it into the jumble of Stuart Skinner and you look at Calvin Pickard, who actually has played well recently. So Yanni Gourde back to Tampa makes a lot of sense. I think Toronto's going to be in the mix as well there. Imagine Florida trying to rip him out of the hands of Tampa. We'll see. But I think Yanni Gourde to Tampa makes a lot of sense. But I think Tampa could go bigger here. So if Tampa doesn't get a trade with Buffalo, then I think they go for Yanni Gourde. That's where I'm at right now. I think Tampa's going to be talking to Buffalo and Seattle the most. Jason Zucker and Alex Tuch, there's been so much smoke around Tampa going after Tuch. I've been kind of putting it out there that if they don't get Tuch, just get Zucker. I think Zucker being a California boy as well, LA makes a lot of sense. Bjorkstrand going to Winnipeg, I just feel like that's a shovel day off Jets kind of player, middle 6 guy, can play up in the lineup. I also think Bjorkstrand would fit in that scheme, fit in that style of play. So I think Bjorkstrand would be a perfect addition for the Jets. Connor Murphy to the Edmonton Oilers. I'm picturing something with the Edmonton Oilers. They acquire maybe Lucas Reichel from Chicago, maybe Ryan Donato from Chicago. I feel like there's so many guys on Chicago right now that Edmonton would just love to have. Even a Pat Maroon on the 4th line. Imagine Pat Maroon and Corey Perry. Wait, didn't those two guys, weren't they on the same team? The Tampa Bay Lightning. Imagine the Edmonton Oilers are just trying to cook something up and get Pat Maroon, Corey Perry, get those guys on the 4th line in Edmonton. So here's the thing. I think there's so many guys on Chicago that could fit for Edmonton. I actually don't even have Pat Maroon on here because I wouldn't be surprised if Pat Maroon just finishes out the year with Chicago as a veteran. But at the same time, I feel like he wants another cup. Just keep adding the cups for Pat Maroon. So I think Pat Maroon could be in there here. I don't know. I don't know where he would get dealt, so I didn't even predict because he could be all across the board. I could see him going back to Tampa. I could see him going to the Panthers as a joke. I could see Toronto trying to scoop him up for a character in the room. I don't know. I think there's so many guys that could look at him. But Lucas Reichel makes some sense for Edmonton, and then the fellow German with Leon Draisaitl. But going back to the one above that, Rasmus Ristolainen to the Dallas Stars makes too much sense. They missed out on Seth Jones. I don't know if Erik Karlsson's realistic to happen here before the deadline. I'm saying that, and Seth Jones just got traded. So if the Dallas Stars can't pull off an Erik Karlsson trade, I think Rasmus Ristolainen might be their guy, or David Savard. Keep an eye on that. And I do have David Savard maybe going to the Colorado Avalanche, but the top two teams for me for David Savard would be the Avs and the Stars. Ryan Donato, I have him going to the Edmonton Oilers, but again, I think the Oilers could go somewhere else for a trade. But again, a package of Donato, Mrazek retained from a third-party broker, and maybe even Connor Murphy, send a Vander Kane to either Chicago or another team, I think the Oilers might trade a Vander Kane. Again, I don't have him on the list here. I don't really have a prediction to where he would go. But if the Oilers were to make a bigger deal like that, and maybe with Chicago, I could see Evander Kane going somewhere else, maybe to the team that ends up being a third-party broker. Braden Shen, there's the clear connection with Kelly McCrimmon. I think the Leafs, I think the Sens, I think the other teams are going to be going after Braden Shen, but Vegas makes a lot of sense here. And Vegas, I mean, they've made a big trade with St. Louis in the past. Very recently, Barbashev. They also pulled Pietrangelo from St. Louis in free agency. So Braden Shen knows Pietrangelo and Barbashev pretty well. I mean, it would be just perfect fit. Luke Shen to Toronto, I'm manifesting it. I hope it happens. I think the Leafs, again, I could see them adding the 3 or 4 smaller adds. So I have Nick Bjugstad here. I would say I'm pretty confident they're going to make 3 additions and potentially depth. So one on the defense, which in this case would be Luke Shen. One at center, which could be Nick Bjugstad. And then a winger. So Brandon Tanev or Luke Cunnin fit the bill perfectly there. So that's the Brad Treliving type of deadline. I hope I'm proven wrong. I hope something crazy happens, something sexy happens. But 3 of those 4 players would be the fit for Toronto based on what I'm hearing. Brian Dumoulin, Minnesota. He was actually coached by John Hines back in his Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins days. So I think Brian Dumoulin could be a fit in Minnesota. The cap is not crazy. I think even there could be some retention there, but the Wild probably could add someone on the left side. I think Bogosian's playing on his off hand right now on the defense, so they could use a left shot defenseman. David Savard, as I said, Colorado, Bjugstad, Toronto. And then just some more to wrap it up. Jordan Greenway to Ottawa. He actually played with Brady Tkachuk at Boston University, so I think there could be a fit there. Does Buffalo want to trade in division? Not sure, but I mean, is Greenway like that massive difference maker for them? And they have a pretty poor morale in the room right now. So I think Greenway to Ottawa could make some sense. That would be the Sens type of player. They're building a lot of these pesky Sens type of players. And I think if Ottawa's willing to give up like a 2nd-round pick or even a 3rd and a 4th or something like that, like I think Buffalo would definitely pull the trigger on that. So yeah, if Ottawa wants to make their one kind of middle 6 move, I think that could make some sense. Michael McCarron, I mean, not a crazy move, but again, Detroit, are they going to go aggressive? They're like right in the middle of the pack, so I can't see them swing big, but you never know. I mean, Stevie Y, I've kind of said Elias Pettersson's probably on their radar, but maybe an offseason move. So yeah. I mean, there's other guys out there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit looked at a Bowen Byram, but maybe an offer sheet target or a free agent target. I do think Detroit and Stevie Y are going to have a busy offseason. Michael McCarron's a Michigan boy, so keep an eye on that. I'm going hot with this. I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if this is going to happen, but Bowen Byram, Dylan Cousins, Pettersson, like, go back, guys. Buffalo, Vancouver, get back on the phone. Talk it out. Elias Pettersson's been brutal. I saw something from Spit and Chickless today saying that JT Miller's had more points than Elias Pettersson has had shots since the trade went down, which is insane. Actual insanity. So I just think do it. Buffalo's in such bad morale in that room. I keep hearing the worst things behind the scenes in terms of where the players' mental state is at. So it's just losing. You got to change something. I'm not saying Elias Pettersson's struggles is going to help going into a losing room, but some kind of spark like that, especially Elias Pettersson and Rasmus Dahlin, I think there could be a spark there too. The Swede connection, I know that's a lazy take, but at the same time, just go back to the drawing board, figure out that trade. If you're a draft pick away, just put the pride aside and get the deal done. It's the best for the NHL when those big deals happen. And I think for those 2 teams specifically, that would benefit Vancouver big time. And if it means that Vancouver has to add a draft pick or 2, like Elias Pettersson is like horrible right now. If you're Vancouver, you should be okay adding draft picks and maybe even a prospect of Elias Pettersson to get you Byram and Cousins at this point, stop fooling around. The asset is like getting ruined in Vancouver right now. I'm not saying it's a Vancouver problem. I'm just saying Elias Pettersson, something's up. So just make the move. Byram and Cousins would be legit players for Vancouver. And I think Elias Pettersson could get a good opportunity to play in Buffalo. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Comment your NHL trade deadline predictions 2025. And I will see you guys for some more videos this week. I'll be breaking trades, more predictions, mock trades maybe. And then, of course, I'll be live all day March 7th for NHL trade deadline. Hope to see you guys there bright and early. And hope you subscribe, like, comment, notification bell. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.